Hello everyone and welcome back to the Nightforge. Ever wondered about the winged women who chose, who lived and who died on the battlefield? Beyond the clanging of swords and the clash of shields, a deeper, more mystical purpose awaited those brave enough to fall. Dive into the true story of the Valkyries, the fierce Norse maidens who held the keys to Valhalla and the destiny of fallen warriors. Picture this, a chaotic battlefield, the air thick with the cries of men and the ring of steel. Amidst the chaos, celestial figures descend from the sky, their armor glinting in the pale light. These are the Valkyries, the legendary warrior maidens of Norse mythology. Their name literally means choosers of the slain, and their role was one of the most sacred and terrifying in the entire Norse cosmos. They weren't just battlefield scavengers, they were divine agents of Odin, the All-Father, tasked with a mission that would shape the very fate of the gods. So, who were these formidable women? Often depicted as beautiful and deadly, riding winged horses through the clouds, the Valkyries were far more than just pretty faces. They were shield maidens in their own right, skilled in the arts of war and blessed with the authority of the gods. Early Norse poems portray them as grim, almost demonic figures, weavers of fate who would appear before battles to decide the outcome. They were intertwined with ravens, Odin's symbolic birds that feasted on the fallen, reinforcing their connection to death and destiny. But as the stories evolved, so did the image of the Valkyrie. They became more romanticized, seen not just as harbingers of death but as protectors and guides. They were the ultimate reward for a warrior's sacrifice, a promise of glory in the afterlife. The most famous Valkyrie, Brynhilde, is a central figure in the Valkyrjr saga, a powerful warrior maiden who defies Odin himself, showcasing her strength, independence, and complex character. She wasn't just a servant, she had her own will, her own passions, and her own tragic destiny. These weren't passive figures, they were active participants in the grand epic drama of the gods and mortals. Now, let's get to them as crucial duty, choosing the heroes. How exactly did they decide who was worthy of Valhalla? It wasn't random. The Valkyries had a keen eye for courage, skill, and honor. They soared over battlefields, observing the conflicts not as mere spectators, but as divine judges. They were looking for the Inherja, the lone fighters who would form Odin's elite army for the final, apocalyptic battle of Ragnarok. To be chosen was the highest honor a Viking warrior could achieve. It meant you didn't just die, you were selected. The Valkyries sought out warriors who fought with unmatched bravery, who never backed down, and who met their end with a weapon in hand. A death from old age or sickness was seen as a straw death, leading to the gloomy underworld of hell, but a glorious death in battle. That was your ticket to an eternity of feasting and fighting in Odin's great hall. Imagine the scene: a warrior, mortally wounded, takes his last breath. As his vision fades, he doesn't see darkness, but a radiant figure descending toward him. A Valkyrie. She would give the fallen hero a symbolic kiss, sealing their fate and beginning their journey to the afterlife. This moment transformed a brutal death into a divine ascension. It wasn't an end, but a glorious new beginning. This selection process was Odin's grand strategy. He wasn't just collecting souls, he was recruiting the best of the best, building an army capable of standing against giants and monsters when the world's end arrived. The Valkyries were his talent scouts, his divine recruiters, ensuring that Valhalla's ranks were filled with only the most exceptional heroes. This brings us to the fascinating dual nature of the Valkyries. They embodied a powerful paradox. They were both fierce warriors and symbols of beauty and honor. On one hand, they were associated with the brutal reality of war. They were weavers of fate, their presence signaling imminent death. They rode into battle alongside men, their cries mingling with the war horns. They were the embodiment of the battle fury that could seize a warrior, a divine and terrifying force. Yet once they guided the chosen heroes to the gates of Valhalla, their role transformed completely. Within the golden-roofed hall, they shed their armor and became gracious hostesses. They were the ones who served the Einherjar endless horns of mead, ensuring the feasting and revelry never ceased. In this role, they represented peace, reward, and the honorable hospitality that was so central to Norse culture. They were the nurturing presence that made Valhalla a paradise, not just an eternal barracks. This duality is key to understanding them. They weren't just one-dimensional angels of death. They represented the full spectrum of a warrior's ideal. They were strong and capable in battle, yet graceful and honorable in peace. They could decide a man's fate with a glance, but also serve him his drink in the afterlife. This blend of beauty and battle, of fate and service, made them some of the most compelling figures in all of mythology. They were a reminder that true honor is found not just in how you fight, but in how you live and, ultimately, in how you are remembered. Their own stories often involved love and tragedy, falling for mortal heroes and sometimes being punished by Odin for their transgressions, adding another layer of relatable humanity to their divine nature. The image of the Valkyries charging across the sky is one of the most iconic in all of mythology, famously immortalized by Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries. But what was this ride really about? It was a mission of cosmic importance. As agents of Odin, the Valkyries were extensions of his will, acting as messengers and enforcers of fate. When they rode, they weren't just traveling, they were shaping destinies. Their journey began in Asgard, the realm of the gods. From there they would descend to Midgard, the world of mortals, their winged steeds carrying them over mountains and seas. They were set to cause the aurora borealis, the northern lights, with the shimmer from their armor as they rode across the night sky. This celestial light was assigned to those on the ground that the gods were at work, that the fate of men was being decided in the heavens. The Valkyries were true warriors of fate. Their choices on the battlefield were not impulsive. They were part of a grand tapestry woven by the Norns, the fates of Norse mythology. In some texts, the Valkyries themselves are described as weavers, creating the cloth of a battle's outcome with threads made from human entrails, using severed heads as weights. It's a gruesome, powerful image that highlights their inescapable connection to destiny and death. Their ride wasn't a one-way trip. After selecting the slain, their journey continued, this time leading a procession of honored dead. They guided the souls of the Einherjar across the Bifrost, the shimmering rainbow bridge that connected the world of mortals to the world of the gods. This was the final, triumphant ride for a fallen hero, escorted by a divine shield maiden to their eternal reward. The ride of the Valkyries was a symbol of divine intervention, a powerful link between the mortal and the divine, and a visceral representation of how fate governed every aspect of a warrior's life and death. So, the battle is over. The Valkyrie has made her choice. What happens next? This is the final journey, from the blood-soaked earth of the battlefield to the golden halls of Valhalla. This wasn't a somber funeral march. It was a triumphant procession. The fallen warrior, now an Einherjar, was no longer just a mortal man. He was a chosen hero of Odin. Escorted by his Valkyrie guide, the warrior's spirit traveled to Asgard. The primary destination was Valhalla, Odin's majestic hall. The poetic Edda describes it as a vast and incredible place, with a roof made of golden shields and rafters made of spears. It had 540 doors, each wide enough for 800 warriors to march through side by side. This imagery emphasizes the sheer scale of Odin's army and the grandeur of the reward awaiting them. Once inside, the Einherjar's new life began. By day, they would march out of Valhalla's many doors to fight each other in glorious epic combat on the fields of Asgard. They would wound and even kill each other. But by evening, all their injuries would be miraculously healed. They would then return to the Great Hall to spend the night feasting. They ate the meat of the boar Esfrimna, who was cooked every evening and came back to life every morning. They drank endless mead that flowed from the udders of the goat Heyrin, and serving them this endless feast were the Valkyries, now in their role as graceful cupbearers. This journey and the life that followed was the ultimate validation of the Viking warrior ethos. It transformed the tragedy of death into the ultimate triumph. To die in battle was not to lose, but to be chosen, to be escorted by a fierce and beautiful maiden to an eternity of the two things a warrior loved most, fighting and feasting. It was all in preparation for the final day, Ragnarok, when they would march out of Valhalla one last time to fight alongside Odin against the forces of chaos. The Valkyries weren't just delivering souls, they were delivering heroes to their final, glorious destiny. From divine deciders of fate to graceful servants of need, the Valkyries are a testament to the complexity and richness of Norse mythology. They represent the ultimate honor for a warrior, transforming a brutal death into a glorious new beginning. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the world of the Valkyries. If you enjoyed this dive into mythology, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. See you next time.